brothers and sisters. Today I stand before you with a message of hope, a message of truth, a message that speaks to the weary heart. There are moments in life when the weight of the world presses down upon us, when the burdens of the day seem too much to bear, when the struggles we face feel like a mountain too high to climb. But I want you to know this: you are not alone. There is a God in heaven who sees you. He sees your pain. He sees your tears. He sees the struggles that no one else knows about. In the quiet moments of the night, when fear grips your heart, when you wonder if you have the strength to go on, He is there. He has never turned His eyes away from you. You may feel invisible to the world, but you are never invisible to God. God sees what others overlook. In a world where recognition is often reserved for the loudest voices and the most visible achievements, it is easy to feel unnoticed, forgotten, and unappreciated. You may give your best every day, working tirelessly, sacrificing for others, yet never hearing a word of gratitude or acknowledgement. The effort you pour into your responsibilities, the patience you show in difficult moments, the quiet battles you fight within your heart, all of it can go unseen by those around you. But there is one who sees it all. God sees the late nights when exhaustion presses heavy on your body, yet you keep going because someone depends on you. He sees the kindness you extend when no one is watching, the love you give without expecting anything in return. He sees the times you choose to forgive instead of holding a grudge, the moments you resist temptation when it would be easier to give in. He sees the burdens you carry in silence, the struggles you don't speak about, and the worries that weigh on your heart. The world often measures worth by achievement, status, or recognition, but God looks at the heart. He sees the purity of your intentions, the sincerity of your love, and the faithfulness of your obedience. While others may overlook the small acts of goodness, the sacrifices that go unnoticed, and the pain hidden behind a smile, God does not miss a single detail. He values what the world ignores. He treasures what others take for granted. Perhaps you have spent years doing what is right, yet you feel unseen. You pray for your loved ones, but no one knows the depth of your intercession. You encourage others, but no one realizes how much you need encouragement yourself. You serve with humility, but the credit always goes to someone else. It can be discouraging to feel invisible, as if your efforts are wasted. But God assures you that nothing done in His name is ever in vain. Think of Hagar, a woman who felt forgotten and abandoned in the wilderness. She had been cast aside, left to fend for herself with no one to care for her. But in her desperation, God appeared to her and she declared, "You are the God who sees me." The same God who saw Hagar sees you. He knows your name, your story, and your pain. You are not forgotten. When David was a young shepherd tending his father's sheep, no one saw him as important. His brothers were strong and impressive, warriors fit for battle. But when God chose a king for Israel, He did not look at outward appearances. He looked at David's heart. While others saw an ordinary boy, God saw a king. He saw what others overlooked. You may feel like you are stuck in the background, like your efforts are insignificant. But God is shaping you in ways you cannot yet see. Every act of obedience, every moment of faithfulness, every sacrifice made in love is seen by Him. He is preparing you for something greater, even when it feels like no one notices. God sees your pain. He sees the moments when you push through disappointment, when you smile to hide the hurt, when you keep going even though you feel like giving up. He sees the relationships that have wounded you, the dreams that have been shattered, and the prayers that seem unanswered. You may feel forgotten, but God is near to the brokenhearted. He collects every tear, knowing the depth of your sorrow and the strength it takes to keep believing. God sees your efforts, the work you do behind the scenes, the times you put others before yourself, the faithfulness with which you handle responsibilities. None of it goes unnoticed. When you serve without applause, when you love without expectation, when you give without receiving, God takes note. Even the smallest act of kindness holds eternal significance in his eyes. God sees your faithfulness. In moments when you stand firm in your beliefs despite opposition, when you hold on to hope in the face of despair, when you remain steadfast in prayer, even when the answers seem delayed, he sees it all. Every step of faith, every moment of trust, every decision to walk in his ways is precious to him. God sees the unseen struggles of your heart, the fears you battle in silence, the temptations you fight when no one is looking, the doubts that creep in during the night. He understands them all. He knows the weight of your burdens, and he invites you to cast them upon him, for he cares for you. When the world overlooks you, when people fail to recognize your worth, when your sacrifices seem unnoticed, remember this: God sees what others overlook. He sees, he knows, and he cares. What you do in faith, in love, and in obedience is not wasted. Keep pressing forward, knowing that in his perfect time, he will reward what has been done in secret. He will lift up those who have remained faithful in the quiet places. And he will remind you that you were never unseen. God knows the weight you carry, every burden, every struggle, every silent battle. He sees it all. There are moments in life when the weight feels unbearable, when it seems like no one understands what you're going through. You smile on the outside, but inside you are exhausted. You keep moving forward because you have no other choice. But the heaviness in your heart grows with each passing day. You try to be strong for others, but deep down you wonder how much longer you can carry it all. There are responsibilities that press down on your shoulders, obligations you cannot ignore. People depend on you, your family, your children, your friends, your coworkers. You are the one they turn to for support, for advice, for encouragement. But who carries you? Who lifts you up when you feel like you're about to collapse under the weight of it all? It can feel lonely, as if no one truly sees the burden you bear. But God sees. And more than that, he knows. He knows the pressure you're under, the expectations placed on you, the sacrifices you make, the silent tears you wipe away when no one is looking. He knows them all. He sees the weight of financial struggles, the burden of providing for your family, the stress of wondering if you will have enough to make it through. He knows the weight of grief, the emptiness left behind by a loved one who is no longer here. He understands the pain of loss, the ache of a heart that longs for what once was. He knows the weight of worry, the anxious thoughts that keep you awake at night, the fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of the future, the endless what-ifs that flood your mind. You try to push the thoughts away, to trust that everything will work out, but the worry lingers. God knows the weight of that anxiety, and he does not dismiss it. He does not tell you to simply get over it or move on. Instead, he invites you to bring it to him. He knows the weight of heartbreak, the betrayal that cut deep, the disappointment that left you broken, the relationships that didn't turn out the way you had hoped. He sees the pain of rejection, the loneliness that lingers even when you are surrounded by people. He knows how much you long for healing, for restoration, for something to take away the ache inside your soul. He knows the weight of unspoken struggles, the battles you fight in your mind, the temptation you resist, the doubts you wrestle with. He knows the moments when you feel like giving up, when you wonder if your prayers are even being heard. He understands the frustration of waiting, of feeling like answers are delayed, of questioning why things haven't changed. He knows the weight of your past, the regrets you carry, the mistakes that haunt you, the guilt that whispers you are not enough. He sees the shame that tries to hold you captive, the fear that people will only remember your failures. But he does not define you by your past. He does not see you as the sum of your mistakes. Instead, he sees a heart that longs to be free, a soul that desires to walk in his grace. He knows the weight of weariness, the exhaustion of trying to be strong, the fatigue of constantly pushing forward. He understands the deep sighs, the moments when you close your eyes and wonder if things will ever get easier. He knows that sometimes you are not just physically tired, you are emotionally and spiritually drained. God knows the weight you carry, but he does not leave you to carry it alone. He invites you to lay it down at his feet. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He is not asking you to pretend the weight isn't heavy. He is not telling you to carry it all on your own. He is offering to lift it from your shoulders to give you peace in the midst of your struggles. When the burden feels overwhelming, when the weight of life seems too much to bear, remember that he is with you. He does not grow weary, and he does not faint. He will uphold you when you feel weak. He will strengthen you when you feel like you cannot take another step. He will carry what you cannot, and he will walk with you through every trial, every heartache, every uncertainty. God knows the weight you carry, and he is not indifferent to your pain. He sees, he understands, he cares, and he will never let you carry it alone. God hears the cries of your heart, even when no one else does. Even when your voice trembles and your words fail, he listens. There are times when the weight of life becomes too much to bear, when you find yourself crying out in desperation, wondering if anyone truly understands the depth of your pain. You may not always have the strength to put your feelings into words, but God hears even the silent prayers, the unspoken longings, the tears that fall in solitude. He hears you when you call out to him in moments of sorrow, when grief grips your heart and the loss feels unbearable, when memories flood your mind and the ache refuses to fade. He listens. You may feel as though your cries go unheard, as though heaven is silent, but God is never distant. He bends down to listen, to hold your heart, to remind you that you are not alone. He hears you when you whisper prayers in the stillness of the night, when sleep will not come, when worry fills your mind, when the future feels uncertain. He is there. He does not dismiss your fears or brush aside your concerns. He listens with compassion, with understanding, with a love so deep that it reaches into the very core of your being. He hears the prayers you have prayed 1,000 times, the ones that seem to have gone unanswered. You wonder if he has forgotten, if he has turned away, if your cries have somehow been lost in the vastness of the world. But God is not deaf to your prayers, nor is he indifferent to your pain. He hears every plea, every sigh, every word spoken in faith. Even when you do not see immediate answers, he is working in ways beyond your understanding. He hears the cries of your heart when you are weary, when you are tired of fighting battles no one else knows about. He hears the exhaustion in your voice, the longing for relief, the desperate hope for a breakthrough. He knows how much strength it takes to keep going, how hard it is to trust when everything seems uncertain. And in those moments, he draws near, offering comfort that the world cannot give. He hears you when you cry out in frustration, when you feel like nothing is changing, when you wonder if he is really there. He is not offended by your honesty, nor does he turn away from your questions. He welcomes your raw, unfiltered emotions because he understands the struggles of your heart. He does not ask you to come to him with perfect words or rehearsed prayers. He simply asks you to come. He hears the silent cries, the ones that never leave your lips but fill your soul with longing, the prayers you are afraid to pray, the desires you hesitate to voice, the pain you try to hide. He knows it all. Even when you cannot express what is in your heart, he understands. He hears the language of your soul, the emotions too deep for words, the burdens too heavy to carry alone. He hears you in your moments of weakness, when you feel unworthy, when shame whispers that you are too far gone. He hears the quiet repentance, the desire to be made new, the hope for redemption. He does not turn away in disappointment. He responds with grace, with mercy, with open arms. He hears the prayers you have prayed for others, the loved ones you intercede for, the friends you lift up, the family members you long to see restored. He hears the prayers spoken in faith, the ones filled with hope, the ones uttered in desperation. Every word, every tear, every plea is precious to him. He hears you when you rejoice, when gratitude overflows, when praise rises from your lips. He delights in your thanksgiving, in your worship, in the moments when your heart is lifted in joy. He is not only present in your pain, he is with you in every season, through every high and every low. God hears the cries of your heart, and he does not remain silent. He responds in his perfect timing, in his perfect way. Though you may not always see the answers immediately, he is working behind the scenes, orchestrating things for your good. He is not distant, not indifferent, not uncaring. He is near, listening, holding you close. And he will never fail to hear you when you call. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. There are moments in life when you reach the end of yourself, when the strength you once had fades, and you realize that no matter how hard you try, you cannot do it on your own. You have pushed forward, you have fought through the struggles, you have held on for as long as you could, but now you are weary. The weight of life feels too heavy, the burden too much to bear. You wonder how much longer you can keep going, how much more you can endure. But it is in these moments, when your strength is gone, when your heart is heavy, when your hands are trembling, that God steps in. He does not ask you to be strong on your own. He does not expect you to have it all together, to never grow tired, to never feel weak. He knows your limitations, your struggles, your exhaustion. And he invites you to lean on him, to surrender the weight you are carrying, to stop relying on your own strength and trust in his. When you feel like you are failing, when you believe you are not enough, when you struggle to see a way forward, God reminds you that his strength is greater than your weakness. His power is not dependent on your abilities, and his grace is not limited by your shortcomings. He does not measure you by how much you can handle, but by how willing you are to trust in him. You may feel inadequate, unqualified, unworthy, But God has never chosen the strongest, the most capable, or the most powerful to accomplish his plans. He has always worked through the weak, the broken, the ones who know they cannot do it on their own, because it is in weakness that his strength is most clearly seen. Moses doubted his ability to lead. He questioned whether he was the right person, whether he had what it took to fulfill the calling God had given him. But God did not choose Moses because he was strong. He chose him because through his weakness, God's power would be revealed. When Moses felt inadequate, God reminded him that it was not about his ability, but about God's strength working through him. Gideon was afraid, uncertain, convinced that he was too weak to accomplish anything great. Yet God called him a mighty warrior, not because of his own strength, but because of what God would do through him. When Gideon finally surrendered his fear and trusted in God's power, he was able to lead a victory that no human strength could have achieved. Paul, a man who had endured suffering, hardship, and trials, came to understand the power of weakness. He pleaded with God to remove the thorn in his flesh, the struggle that seemed to hold him back. But God's response was not to take away the struggle, but to remind Paul that his grace was sufficient, that his strength was made perfect in Paul's weakness. You may be facing a battle that feels impossible to win. You may feel too weak, too broken, too exhausted to keep fighting. But God is not asking you to fight in your own strength. He is asking you to trust in his. The world may tell you that weakness is a flaw, that you must always be strong, that admitting your struggles is a sign of failure. But God tells you that it is in weakness that his strength is most fully displayed. When you reach the end of yourself, you will find that God is more than enough. When you have no more strength left to give, he will carry you. When you feel like you are falling apart, he will hold you together. His power is not just for the strong. It is for the weak, the weary, the broken, the ones who know they cannot do it alone. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness, not because he delights in seeing you struggle, but because he longs for you to experience the fullness of his power. If you never felt weak, you would never know what it means to be held by him. If you never struggled, you would never understand the depths of his grace. If you never reached the end of yourself, you would never see how strong he truly is. So do not fear your weakness. Do not hide it. Do not be ashamed of it. Do not see it as a sign of failure. Instead, bring it to God. Let him take the weight you have been carrying. Let him show you what it means to rely on his strength. Let him work through you in ways that you never imagined possible, because his power is greater than your limitations. His grace is deeper than your struggles, and his strength is made perfect in your weakness. God will not let you fall. There are moments in life when you feel as though you are on the edge of collapse, when the weight of your burdens presses so heavily upon you that you wonder how much longer you can hold on. You have fought through trials, endured heartbreak, weathered storms, yet the struggle seems unending. Every step forward feels uncertain, every decision filled with doubt. You may feel weak, exhausted, or even defeated, but God has not abandoned you. His hands are beneath you, steadying your steps, preventing you from falling beyond his reach. You may stumble, you may grow weary, you may even feel like you are losing your way, but God's grip on your life is firm. He does not watch from a distance, indifferent to your struggles. He is near, sustaining you when your strength fails, lifting you when you are too weak to rise on your own. You may feel like you are slipping, like everything around you is crumbling, but God has already promised that he will not let you fall. His faithfulness does not waver with your emotions, nor does his power diminish in your hardest moments. Life often brings trials that shake your confidence, that make you question whether you have the strength to go on. You may have faced disappointments that left you broken, losses that took more from you than you ever imagined possible. You may have walked through seasons of uncertainty, unsure of what the future holds. The fear of failure, the pain of rejection, the weight of responsibilities. Each of these can make you feel like you are barely holding on. But God's hands are stronger than your fears. His love is greater than your failures. His power is beyond anything that threatens to shake you. When Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water, he walked in faith, his eyes fixed on Jesus. But the moment he looked at the waves, at the storm raging around him, fear took hold, and he began to sink. He was falling, drowning in doubt and fear. But before the waters could swallow him, Jesus reached out his hand and pulled him up. Peter was never beyond the reach of his Savior. No matter how deep the waters, no matter how strong the storm, God's hand is always there to keep you from falling. You may be facing battles that no one else sees, silent struggles that weigh heavily on your heart. You may be wrestling with fears, doubts, or insecurities that make you feel as though you are losing control. You may be walking through a season where nothing makes sense, where every effort feels like it leads to another setback. But even in these moments, God is holding you. He sees what you are going through. He knows the thoughts that trouble your mind, the burdens that press upon your heart. And he has already made a way for you to stand. The enemy may try to convince you that you are alone, that you are too weak to overcome, that your failures define you. He will whisper that you are on the verge of falling beyond recovery, that you are too broken, too weary, too far gone. But God's truth is greater than the enemy's lies. He has said that he will uphold you with his righteous right hand. He has promised that even if you stumble, you will not be cast down, for he holds you in his grip. There is no failure too great for his mercy, no struggle too strong for his power, no mistake too deep for his redemption. Even when you feel like you are losing your way, even when the path ahead is unclear, he remains your firm foundation. He will guide your steps. He will strengthen your spirit. He will renew your heart. You may have moments of weakness, but God's strength is greater. You may feel like you are losing your balance, but God's arms are steady. You may face obstacles that seem insurmountable, but God's power is limitless. His love is unshakable, his grace unending, his faithfulness unwavering. When the weight of life feels unbearable, when the darkness presses in, when the road ahead seems too difficult, remember this: you are not walking alone. You are not left to carry your burdens by yourself. God is your refuge, your protector, your firm foundation. He will not let you fall. His hands will hold you. His strength will sustain you. His grace will carry you. No matter what comes your way, no matter how hard the battle, he is with you. And he will never let you go. Through every trial, every struggle, every moment of weakness, God is with you. He sees your burdens. He knows your weariness. He hears the silent cries of your heart. You may feel overwhelmed, but he has not abandoned you. His strength is made perfect in your weakness. His grace is sufficient for every challenge, and his hands will never let you fall. Life will bring seasons of uncertainty, moments where you feel as though you are losing your grip, but God's promises remain unshaken. He is not distant. He is not unaware. He is near, holding you, lifting you, carrying you when you can no longer stand on your own. You do not have to rely on your own strength because his power is greater than anything you face. No matter how weary you become, no matter how heavy the weight on your heart, remember that you are not alone. God is your refuge, your sustainer, your ever-present help in times of trouble. He will not let you be overcome. He will not let you be forgotten, and he will not let you fall. His love is unshakable, his mercy unending, and his faithfulness will carry you through every storm. Trust in him, lean on him, and find rest in the assurance that he is always with you.